Hello and welcome to the Cambridge Skeptics live stream. The Cambridge Skeptics, for those of you who don't know, are a volunteer organization. We are dedicated to promoting critical thinking, science, and positive skepticism in our local community of Cambridge, but also across the UK and beyond. And tonight, it being close to the end of the year, it is the time of year when all of the end of year in review, wrap up things start happening. And tonight we are going to discuss our version of the Ockham Awards. And Chris, you're going to introduce that for us.
Yeah, so award season is upon us. And yes, so these are the Ockham Awards. They were instigated by the Skeptic magazine and its then editor Deborah Hyde in 2012 to celebrate the best of the skeptical community. There are currently 3 awards: the Award for Skeptical Activism, the Editor's Choice, and the Rusty Razor for pseudoscience. So we're going to be talking about the Award for Skeptical Activism and the Rusty Razor today, because those are the 2 that accept public nominations. So yes, the Award for Skeptical Activism, it's for an individual or organization who has done outstanding work to promote critical thinking within the last 12 months. And these are the 3 criteria they consider. Impact, have they brought about change? Have they been active in challenging pseudoscience? Reach, has their message reached a lot of people? Are those people within the skeptical community or within the wider public? And relevance, have they been actively promoting critical thinking within the last year? This was inaugurated in 2018, with the first award going to Michael Marshall, or I think we all know, from Skeptics with a K, the Merseyside Skeptics Society, the Good Thinking Society, and after winning this award, he was actually made editor of the Skeptics. He does pretty much everything. And last year, it went to Natalia Pasternak, who's one of the leading skeptics in Brazil, along with her organization, the IOC. So that's the sort of people we're thinking about. Does anyone have their nomination? Who do you think should win this year's? Who are you nominating? Who wants to go first?
Oh goodness.
I can go first if that's what you want. I suppose I realized as you were going through that my nominee maybe is a little bit adjacent. Mainly because I also realized about 10 minutes before we did this that actually, well, not realized, but as I was putting together my notes, actually most of what she's done was actually last year, not this year. But
I think, like, if you think about when Michael Marsh won it, he didn't win it just for his work in that one year.
Okay, fine. In any case, I have chosen Rebecca Jones. For those that don't know, Rebecca Jones was a I suppose a data scientist, I think, or GIS specifically for those that know, like subdivisions of data science. In the Florida Health Department, she was responsible for reporting, Florida's COVID numbers early on in the pandemic. She got pressured to doctor the figures by state officials, particularly to sort of support the message that it was safe to reopen, and she was also pressured to remove public access to the data so they could do their own work. She, because of her basically refusal to follow these orders, she got taken off of this sort of data reporting in early May, and immediately noticed that the figures had then been doctored by her replacement, blew the whistle on it, and got fired in the middle of May 2020. I think up to this point, that's good work, but not necessarily enough to get nominated, I think, for an award. Her response to being fired was, well, if they can do it wrong, I'm going to do it right. And so she set up her own COVID dashboard, going basically to the sort of the source data from different hospitals and things, and different testing centers, and launched this sort of independent dashboard that was sort of showing the true picture rather than the picture that the state was trying to demonstrate. And alongside that, if you do go to the website, is a lot of debunking of myths along with it. You know, here are the true numbers, here's the true impact, this is what it means for you, here's how you can protect yourselves, i.e. get vaccinated, wear masks, and here's what doesn't work, i.e. ivermectin. And this, well, not the ivermectin part, but basically her sort of continued reporting of these numbers seemed to upset the powers that be. And in December of last year, her house was raided by the police on the pretense that she may have sent a message to a chat that she shouldn't have messaged. Yeah, that feels like an incredibly loose, loose sort of premise. The precise laws were basically that actually she had hacked a sort of a web chat that was used by her old team and other teams, but you know, the sort of the health board. Turns out that in what was a show of terrible practice, everyone uses the same login and password to access the chat. So everybody has there's no way to identify it was her. The premise of the warrant was basically this, like the message that was sent was the sort of thing that she might send, and at least one of the recent messages was sent from an IP address roughly around where she lived. It feels like the sort of warrant that would be granted by a judge that really doesn't understand what tech is, which is probably all of them. But yeah, incredibly flimsy premise, but basically they barged in, took all of her electronic devices, and the sort of the work that she was doing was stopped briefly. She set up a GoFundMe page, she got a new laptop, she just started it all again. And so sort of because of this, I suppose speaking truth to power and sort of her persistence to try and share the truth and to sort of not stand for misinformation. I think that's for me why she is sort of potentially deserving of this award.
Cool.
So going back to the criteria, what sort of impact do you think she's had?
Well, it's I think potentially there's the concrete thing is actually she's been able to give people the genuine, you know, the sort of the truth about what has been happening and allow them to make appropriate and correct decisions within the state of Florida. In a wider sense, I suppose she acts as a role model for standing up for the truth.
Yeah, okay. And reach?
Reach, I mean, Florida's a fairly popular state. And yeah, again, sort of, yeah, allowing lots of people. I have no idea what the population of Florida is.
And finally, relevance. So you said this was last year. What's she been up to this year?
What's she done for us lately?
What's she done for us lately?
So the website that she created has been continuing to run, and she's sort of been working with other I was going to say critical thinkers, maybe that's not quite the right term, but scientists, to sort of help spread information rather than misinformation on that site. And she's announced she's running for public office as well, which may be good in the future. Apparently, she's
Yep,
going to run
okay,
against
I'm convinced.
she's going to run against Matt Gatz, apparently, which I think is should be.
Wait, I don't know who that is.
He's the
Lucky you.
Republican.
Yes.
He's the Republican House of Republican representative who's currently being investigated on child trafficking and sexual exploitation. I think it is.
That's
I don't want to get
great.
done.
I am saying nothing here. You're on your own, mate.
No. My understanding is that he and that's it. He and his aides are being investigated, and one of the aides is, I think, has been charged or is certainly in custody. So he's we'll see where that goes. But in any case, he's one of the sort of your Marjorie Taylor Greene, your Laura Boebert type QAnon-y Republicans.
QAnon, save the children, that sort of thing.
Won't somebody
Yes.
please think of
That's-
children?
So yeah, she's going
Yeah,
to run against him.
Sounds like an excellent choice.
Thank you.
Andrew, you should go.
Yes, shall I go next? Okay, cool. I'm going to start in a slightly different way. If I can work out technology, it's not like it's my day job or anything, but and I'm going to try to share this screen with you. Can you all see the boxes with all the dots? Okay,
Yes.
good. So this is a image from a scientific paper, and it is various culture cells, lines, pictures of them to back up the arguments the paper is making. I won't go into any more detail about what it is, in part because I've only got a little bit of information about it, and also because it's not really important. But looking at those things, can you notice anything about them that is a bit off?
So I noticed that cells C3 and C4 are both cropped versions of the same image. So the two dots that are in the middle of C4 are at the bottom of C3, and the rest of the pattern follows as well.
Yeah.
And then, like, just looking at the hue of the two above, they're clearly got a slightly different hue compared to the others. They're a bit greener.
Yeah.
So
How about A2 and B2?
You've sunk my battleship.
Yep, exactly. Can you see anything similar sort of thing?
A2 might be slightly higher up version of B2, maybe.
Similar sort of thing.
You've got
Yeah,
Or
you've
upside
got
down? Is it upside down?
you've got this sort of T pattern. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see
there it is,
the mouse,
yeah.
but
Oh,
it's
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
T
yeah.
pattern.
Yeah.
So essentially, you guys have correctly identified that a lot of these parts of these pictures are duplicates of other ones. If I slide this across, you can see that there are actually quite a few areas where they are simply
Oh,
duplicating
yeah.
things. Now, this is a problem. This is a paper. This is some evidence presented in favor of whatever argument the paper is making. And the data they presented has clearly been doctored. I will stop sharing, if I can work out how. There we go, stop sharing. So this brings me to my nomination, which is a lady called Dr. Elizabeth Bick, who basically is something known as a super spotter. And basically what she does is she looks at thousands of papers that people send to her saying, there's something a bit off about this paper. And she looks for things like this. She, apparently has a massive, like 36-inch screen on her desk where she blows these pictures up. And apparently an incredible memory where she can look at a picture on one page and 10 pages later go, oh, that picture is the same thing in this corner, and it's been a modified image. And so basically she goes
She must be an absolute whiz at jigsaw puzzles.
Yes, exactly.
She's just one of those, fine, we've got a 10,000 piece white canvas jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
So,
Give me
it took
10
about
minutes.
15 minutes.
So it's Farah McCrelly. She works with two computer data analysts who do the same job as her, but a bit slower.
On a computer. They use computer and AI and stuff like that.
Just to confirm what she's already found.
Yeah, exactly. And so basically, she's been doing this for a while now. She originally worked at Stanford University and various places like that, doing her own research. But in sort of 2013, I think it was, she sort of went into this data analyzing, to looking for people who are trying to publish fraudulent data sort of full time. And various articles I found were a little bit dated. There's not been much in the press about her recently about this side of things. So between 1995 and 2014, she analyzed images in over 20,000 scientific papers across 40 different journals. And from this, in 2016, her and several colleagues published a study showing that they found around 4% of published papers contained problematic figures and diagrams.
Wow.
Which, she concluded that a lot of these demonstrate the signs of deliberate manipulation, which obviously is problematic on its own. Most recently, however, she's come to somewhat the public's attention because of her work on papers against, I'm going to pronounce this, hydroxychloroquine. Another one of those famous cure-alls things that's been doing the rounds, meant to be able to combat the effects of COVID. And she found problems in the papers, in some of the major papers that were being used to promote this as a treatment for COVID. And as a result of it, she became something of a target of people on social media. She got bombarded with all the usual friendly comments you get on Twitter and Facebook and the likes. And additionally, the people whose papers she was criticizing filed legal complaints against her, all for just pointing out that their data had flaws in it. And she's, of course, you get the fun death threats and the threats to come around and rape her because people are inventive on the internet. And since then, she's basically said she's been something of a coordinated attack, with again hundreds of messages a week, basically threatening her because she came out against these papers for promoting hydroxychloroquine. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the sum of my nomination. This woman continues to do really great work. She continues to do these studies, calling out studies that have presented fraudulent data in order to promote their theories, and obviously calling out the dangers of this apparent treatment for this devastating disease that has killed so many. Has potentially saved a lot of lives by making people aware that it's not the treatment that people are claiming it is, that the papers that support it don't stand up. And so yes, that's my nomination.
So impact wise, we're
impact, I think is been very important. It's big. I mean, obviously, given the people who have been promoting hydroxychloroquine as an alternative treatment, that's had a lot of reach. So a lot of people have heard of it because of that. And so coming out and pointing out these flaws in the papers, identifying where there seems to be sign of deliberate manipulation in places, is very important. It allows people to have a better understanding of what their options are and potentially save lives, in that people who might have turned to this as an alternate treatment might then go, okay, well, I'll get the vaccine instead. I won't go for this thing.
Yeah, because this sort of gloss of like credible science can make the pseudoscience very easily palatable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's very easy to, when you have these, as we all know, with someone like Andrew Wakefield and his measles, mumps and rubella vaccination papers, which even after the paper was retracted, the amount of damage it's done is unbelievable. So these papers, picking them up quickly, because she picked these things, information up fairly quickly. These papers came out, she was all over them, and and it's. I like to say that hopefully it means it's nipped it in the bud, but we all know how these conspiracy theories get going and stuff, and how.
But arguably, it would have been worse if she hadn't been there.
Exactly, if it had been left, the ability she has to spot things like these dots. Look at pictures like this where someone presents a biological culture and says, look how different they are. And then she can just look at it and go, okay, that picture on page 1 is the same picture as on page 17. And the fact that she can do that and do it reliably and quickly and means that it's an essential work as far as I'm concerned. So yeah.
And reach-wise?
That's a difficult one. I think I like to think she's had a lot of reach. I mean, there's quite a lot of newspaper articles about her, especially this sort of thing. I say it's a difficult one simply because I hadn't really heard of her until I started looking into these nominations for the Ockham Awards, and she really struck me as the work she's doing really important. I was impressed, and it as someone who's always you always have that. We joke at my work about what would you do if you won the lottery type thing. And one of the things I've always said I'd like to do is set up a scientific journal that does replication of studies. And that's all it does, is replicate existing studies. And so this sort of thing is very close to how I feel about science, looking at studies and pointing out where they have gone wrong and trying to do things better. And so I like to think she's had a lot of reach, but I think, unfortunately, coming out and saying something's wrong is often overshadowed by the people who said it was, this is the cure-all in the first place. So maybe not huge as much reach as I would have liked.
And relevance. So
I think very relevant.
The harassment has basically kept her relevant.
Harassment has kept her relevant, and she continues to do this work all the time. I mean, I don't know if she's still working on studies related specifically to things like the pandemic and stuff like that. But obviously, any paper where she can point out fraudulent work is taking place is a step closer to us understanding the world better and stuff like that. So I'd say it's her work is very relevant. Okay.
Okay, we're convinced.
Yay, I win. Okay.
You're convinced of all of them.
I'm easily convinced.
Well, tell us about yours then.
Okay, so I went a slightly different route to try and shake things up a bit. So we have a variety of choices here. What have I done with it? There it is. So yeah, I went with a reporter, Mariana Spring, who works for the BBC, and I guess I should mention something about the BBC at this point. Obviously, the BBC is a lot of controversies at the moment. It's under a lot of criticism, much of it well-deserved. Most recently, platforming and someone calling for the genocide of trans people. But the BBC is a massive organisation, and as an ex-BBC producer, I can say that what happens in one department doesn't necessarily reflect what's going on in another department.
That wasn't very much.
Yeah, you're a BBC producer.
That to yourself.
It's not something I like to admit in public. But yeah, so Mariana was appointed the first disinformation and social media reporter for the BBC in March 2020. Excellent timing for her there.
I was going to ask if it was something that was in the pipeline for a while and just happened to hit, or did they go, pandemic? Okay, yeah, there's going to be a problem here. Let's put someone on that.
So yeah, my knowledge of the BBC tells me it's more likely to be the former than the latter.
Oh, what great timing.
They got lucky or unlucky, maybe, depending on how you look at it. So yeah, she immediately set to work dealing with all sorts of stuff. This year, she's done a program for Panorama on anti-vax, vaccine disinformation, which was an excellent program. She did a series of podcasts for BBC Trending, also on the same subject. And obviously, this has brought a lot of hatred and harassment and misogyny. And so what she did is she decided to take that and turn it into a campaign. So she's been campaigning for people like Elizabeth Bick and herself who face this online misogyny and harassment because of their work. And she did a program for Panorama last month on this subject, which was great. And she's also been doing some podcasts on climate change, QAnon, all the things we mentioned in our most dangerous conspiracy theories. she's been active trying to deal with all of those. She's a fan of
the show, is that what you're saying?
I assume so. I don't see where else she could be getting her ideas from. So yeah, there we go. Impact Rise, I think, pretty big. She's got this massive platform. She's been able to get out to a lot of people. And she does it with such compassion for the people she's dealing with. She deals with them the way we would like them to be dealt with, as we mentioned before. So yeah, Reach, she's got the BBC. That's a pretty impressive tool for Reach.
I've heard of it.
I deny everything. I never heard of them. Relevance, yeah, she's been doing a huge amount of work this year, and that's why she's my nomination this year.
Cool.
That's really cool.
So does Erica now decide?
Yeah, that's what I decide. I'm the neutral party. I do not have a horse in this race. What I think is really interesting is all like the three people that you picked. There's a lot of similarities. They're all doing sort of data and science communication around COVID, and they're all women. Which is a really
instead we had not, like, we didn't sit down and go, oh, Samuel takes so and so and Andrew will take so and so. We each went away, got someone, made sure we didn't clash, and then it has just turned out that all three are women.
Yeah. Which I think is really interesting. So if we could just combine them, if we average them out, the winner is a sort of a female working on COVID information using science and data. And that's the general sort of person that we think won.
Michelle in the chat has nominated Dr. Louise Newson. I don't know who that is because I don't know who anybody is. Have any of you guys heard of her?
No. How quick can Michelle in the chat get to a Zoom call?
I can type.
Okay, it's called. Okay, I'll just
so I've got yes.
So, leading menopause expert and GP, founder of the menopause charity and free menopause support at Balance. She's the host of various podcasts and evidence-based treatment. And yes, sounds okay. I'm all in favour of that nomination. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Not sure what she's been up to this year. Maybe Michelle can fill us in on that as we go on. But we'll let people.
Looks like she has a podcast.
Who doesn't these days?
Well,
we don't. Okay.
So what's interesting about the fact that the people that you picked are all similar is they're people whose expertise and like demographic characteristics are very close to mine. Any like unconscious bias that I have to select someone who's the most similar to me, like they're all equally similar. So like my bias-ometer doesn't know what to do with that. So who would I pick? They are all so similar, like different, but I feel they're all very equal.
Well, maybe the other way to look about it is look forward and think which one do you think we might be talking about in 5 years?
That's it. That's kind of what I was thinking, and I think that the way that you phrased it is a nice way to put it. If I had to guess about who we might be talking about in 5 years, I feel like it's the woman from the BBC. I think that her impact in 5 years will be really she'll be able to continue to do what she's doing even more, especially in her sort of more recent roles about trying to limit harassment and things like that on the internet. I can see that having a really big impact beyond. But then equally, the data scientist in Florida is also going to be having a big impact if she, goes into public office with that kind of, willingness. But now, remind me the woman's name from the BBC?
Marianna Spring.
Marianna Spring. Okay, so she gets my vote for what it's worth. But they were all really, really good.
Yep, excellent choices. Do we have any honourable mentions before we move on? Anyone want to throw any other names out there? I've got a couple if no one else has.
Oh, no.
One thing that's like slightly close to my heart are the people who are managing the data pipelines for the COVID dashboards, like all over the world. Like they're just doing so much. So like getting those kinds of volumes of data up and running every single day, getting it processed live and available to the public every single day. That's a big baby to be responsible for. And it's very impressive. Like every day, like whenever there's like maybe once a month, there's an announcement like, sorry, the data's going to take another hour to run. We're really sorry. I'm like, oh God, I feel for them.
Yeah, cool. Any others? So I'll mention mine while you're thinking.
So Michelle's just come back with a bit of information. She said that Dr. Louise Newson is a pioneer for women and menopause. Women make up 51% of the population, and we are not represented in our health. She takes this to Parliament and change the law for women's health. And I apparently can't read, so. But yeah, that sounds awesome. That's really
Yep, sounds like an excellent choice again. Right, so my honourable mentions. So I wanted to mention Mick West, who because I thought we should get a man or two in here somewhere.
That's good for diversity.
For representation. Yeah. So yeah, Mick West, he's a skeptical investigator. He made a fortune on some gaming thing he created, and now spends his life.
Is he the guy that they interviewed on the Skeptics Guide?
He's been everywhere this last year. So yeah, now he's a full-time skeptical investigator and debunker. He runs a site called Metabunk, which deals with various. He started off on chemtrails and he's moved on to pretty much everything. And he's been particularly important this year because we've been in the midst of a UFO flap following the release of these dodgy videos and everything else that's gone on around that. So yeah, I wanted to mention him. I think he's been doing great work this year. He has literally appeared everywhere. All the major news networks seem to have had him on at some point. Who else did I have? Yeah, so yeah, the other people I wanted to mention were the data detectives. So these were seven people? I can't remember. 5 people, I think, of various levels, and they sort of came together over the internet to debunk the ivermectin studies. So they've said they're very much inspired by Elizabeth Bick, so obviously she takes priority. But yeah, they've followed in her footsteps, and they've sort of pointed out the errors in the ivermectin studies. So I thought they also deserved a mention.
awesome.
It's super cool.
I mean, it's perhaps completely unsurprising that pretty much everybody we've mentioned has been involved with the pandemic in some ways. It was always going to dominate anything we came up with. So other than the chap's name, who I've immediately forgotten, Mick West.
Mick West, yeah.
Mick West. Have you come across any that have done sort of exceptional things in skepticism, not somewhat related to the pandemic?
No, it's the pandemic sort of dominated everything.
Yeah. Everyone else has just sat down and gone, we'll let you have it this year. Yes. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so let me see. Time to move on.
Yeah, move on from positive things to slightly less positive things. And now I'm wondering.
There's Elizabeth Bick.
Yay!
I was going to say, like,
It's a hell of a monitor.
That is a cool monitor, yes.
She's an image analyst.
Yeah.
Well, if she looked at the monitor, she would be better at her job, but she's looking.
She doesn't even need to do that. She's so good.
That's how good she is.
Yeah.
It's peripheral vision. It's all there. Anyway, yeah, moving on.
Yeah, tell us.
So the Rusty Razor, it's for an individual or organization who has been the most prominent promoter of unscientific ideas in the last 12 months. I can't think, has there been much disinformation over the last 12 months? So the criteria: pseudoscience. How far from sound are the ideas, products, or theories they are promoting? Reach: has their message reached a lot of people? Harm: have the ideas led to or been likely to lead to a great deal of harm to the public? And relevance: have they been actively promoting pseudoscience in the last year? This award was inaugurated in 2017 when Gwyneth Paltrow was the
worthy winner.
Apparently a massive write-in vote.
Amazing.
Really? Apparently, yeah. Andrew, I know you've written about Gwyneth before, and
yes, yes.
It's my
That's all I can
favorite.
really say.
My favorite of all of her bullshit products is her. I get up in the morning. I love a nice glass of alkaline water with a spritz of lemon juice. Like, it's just so fabulously.
That's water.
Her
Isn't it?
understanding. Yeah, it's pH neutral lemony water as opposed to slightly, I don't know, do you call it negative or low pH? I don't know. Any case, it's
Alkaline is high pH, by the way.
yes, no, I know. Yes, I know, which is like
Yeah.
alkaline water with lemon is a higher pH than regular water with lemon. That's why
I mean, it depends on much of both. Anyways.
yes, but in any case, it just
Okay, we're happy with that one. Good. 2018, the award went to the previous year's runner-up, which was Andrew Wakefield.
Justly deserved.
Mr. Andrew Wakefield.
Lifetime Achievement Award?
Sorry?
He should get a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes,
for
exactly.
the answer.
Yeah, I mean, really, he deserves to win every year, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a big uptake in measles, I think, that year because of
Oh yeah, France had a really bad outbreak.
because of him mainly.
Yes.
Well, so he absolutely did not help, but the idea that vaccines cause autism has been around since the 60s.
Yeah,
But just he as mentioned earlier,
he sold it though.
He lent a scientific sort of credibility to the sort of the rumor.
And is still quoted all the time by the anti-vax movement today.
He's still giving talks, isn't he?
Yeah. He's still quite, I say quite big in
Active.
America, but he's living large in America. He's making quite a lot of money out of being
Married a supermodel. This is clearly the way to go.
Yes.
Where am I? Okay. And last year, the winner was, drum roll, please.
Was it Cambridge Skeptics? Just checking.
It was.
Can we get nominated?
It was Didier Raoult, who I just mispronounced horrendously.
Was he Trump's doctor?
He was not. He looks like him,
Trump's
doesn't he?
doctor.
Yeah. So he was the guy Elizabeth Bick exposed,
yes.
and who is now suing him.
Yes, he's the hydroxychloroquine paper guy.
Yes, thank God you said that. I didn't want to say it.
Yes.
So yeah, that was him.
Awesome.
Which brings us up to this year. So anyone want to nominate, or has it been
Would
a
you do it in the
relatively
same
quiet
order?
year?
Nobody's done anything this year. Shall I go first? What the
I
heck?
do.
So I'm going to nominate the how shall I put this? The right-wing media organization Natural News, who have done, constantly, again, Lifetime Achievement Award, if ever there was one going, they could do. But I'm going to nominate them specifically for an article that came out recently, surprisingly, and this will surprise you, about the vaccines and COVID and all that lot. It's not a topic many people talk about, But they've come out with this brilliant headline. I'll read it to you. So much to unpack in just this headline. Only purebloods will survive the vaccine. Radiation holocaust being unreleased against humanity. The spike protein in vaccine causes genetic degeneration. So effectively, they have this idea that the vaccine will stop people's DNA being able to repair itself, and that this will make people incredibly susceptible to radiation. And as they put it, they've said that once it becomes obvious that vaccinated individuals can't tolerate radiation such as sunlight and without suffering genetic mutations, they will shun daylight and become creatures of the night. So basically, they have this paper is about the fact that vaccines will turn us all into vampires who will all die soon when the global depopulation. I cannot say that word.
Depopularization.
That's the word. Let's go with that one. The people who are in favor of global depopularization release a deadly nuclear accident, and all the people with vaccines will suddenly drop dead while.
So that's why I haven't, am I supposed to start fearing the dark already, or is it supposed to kick in?
Fearing the light, loving
fear the light.
I fear the light. I fear the light. Obviously, as a redhead, I fear the light anyway.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Is it supposed to kick in more any day now after the vaccine, or am I waiting for the nuclear thing to happen?
It is the middle of winter, so it could all be.
That's true. It
like that now, so we have no idea.
So not being vaccinated means you'll survive a nuclear bomb.
Yes.
Right.
Apparently so. And being a vaccine means your DNA can't repair itself. You're susceptible to radiation. You will become a creature of the night. We will feast on the blood of our enemies.
You say this like it's a bad thing.
I mean, this is one of the things I love about the anti-vaccination movement is the complete lack of ability to acknowledge irony in that they call themselves purebloods, a term made famous by the bad guys in the Harry Potter novels, which I just think is kind of hilarious. But essentially, it's this. This article was actually based on a paper. So effectively, the paper came out.
So it's real.
Yes, totally real. Paper came out, which I have the name of somewhere in my piles and piles of paper. Here we go. Cited paper title of SARS-CoV-2 spike impairs DNA damage repair and inhibits VDJ recombination in vitro. So
didn't mention the word vampire there. I feel they missed
the
selling point.
It's clearly implied in the title.
This is the problem with scientists. They don't know how to market their work.
Yeah, exactly. So the paper obviously does talk about damage to DNA caused by the spike proteins. You'll notice that it did talk about in vitro. So we're not talking generally about fully grown people. We're talking about, yes, exactly. And one of the things that the Natural News specifically didn't mention is that this paper was specifically looking at the actual virus, not the vaccine version, but the actual exposure to the proper virus and the effect that it could have. And they found that exposure to the actual virus could inhibit repair to DNA. So they specifically, goodness me, I really should have highlighted this paper better. They do specifically say that it's not the vaccine. They talk about the actual virus, not the vaccine.
Oh, okay.
And again, we're not talking that this is not a thing that's been confirmed in people. It's still in cell lines and things like that. It shows effects in that area. So there's a lot of extrapolation in that article. And again, no mention of vampires. Quite disappointing. The paper is basically an argument for another reason to get vaccinated. Here is another terrible thing that the virus can do to you if you are not protected against it. And Natural News have come along and taken essentially the headline, blown it all out of proportion, combined it with another conspiracy theory about globalists wanting to set off nuclear accidents to wipe out vast chunks of the population, which, I'm not really sure why they'd want to do that.
I want to do that many days.
Well, yes, there are days when I want to do that as well. But I'm assuming that globalists will be living on the globe, and and assuming these people are correct, they're going to just be surrounded by anti-vaxxers at the end of it, which seeing the anti-vaxxers are convinced that the globalists are trying to silence them, it seems like a counterintuitive plan to me. But yeah, effectively, I've picked this specific example because I think it's a great example of the way that natural news work in general. Is they take something that most people won't read. Most people aren't going to read the actual paper. I will try to remember to post it in the description, so if people do want to read it. And they take something, they twist it just enough so that people, that it seems plausible, and then fearmonger it.
Well,
and
we have a different term of plausible.
No. I think maybe a better description is they twist it just enough that a very brief skimming of the paper might
sounds to
confirm what they're saying.
Yeah. So unless you do a careful reading.
I mean, apart from the word vampires, all the words they pick are pretty much in the paper, just possibly not in the order that they're using them.
I also think it's interesting that they've obviously made a very, I hope, deliberate branding choice to leave their web design back in 2008.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, I was thinking that. But also
don't mess. Go incognito. Don't mess with your Google.
I already have
search history. You'll be getting all sorts of weird recommendations now.
The store button in particular is giving me a great sense of nostalgia.
The other thing that I am very pleased on is, so at least when the search results came up for me, no one has bought any ads relating to these search terms. The search term natural news. So there's room to buy ads and try to bump it down the list with something more credible, FYI, if anyone wants to bid on that search term. But number two, what I come up as the third search result on my list is nature.com's news section, which I'm very pleased with.
Yeah, well, actually, on that, if you scroll down far enough, it turns out they've bought an enormous number of sites that are something.news. So they have like natural medicine, cures, women's health, natural health, oncology, vaccines, all .news. And if you click through to them, many of them are being flagged up as dangerous by my security, but many of them, the ones that I have got through to, are just full of more crap.
Well, what's interesting, it's interesting from a design perspective. Like, I assume that they could pay a designer who knows something about web design in the last 15 years. Like, I assume that there is somebody who has the skills, who is credulous enough to work with them. It's that they've chosen not to, which I think is very interesting. As opposed to, say, for example, on the Goop side of things with Gwyneth Paltrow, which is all very glossy and shiny and very different web experience. But anyways.
I think you've convinced me on. I think you've convinced me on the pseudoscience part there. Reach. At least I don't hear much from these guys anymore.
Yeah, that's something I was actually trying to find. The data on it I could find wasn't particularly up to date.
Much like their website.
Exactly. The best figure I could find was that in 2014 they had approximately 7 million unique visitors per month, which is quite a lot. And I honestly can't say whether that. I like to think, much like you, that they are starting to decline. I do remember hearing about them all the time just a few years back, and not so much these days, but maybe that's because other voices have risen up. They haven't necessarily gone away. It's just new, exciting, crazy people out there on the internet saying things.
Look, having like a brief run through their website, most of their articles that are sort of a couple of weeks old are in the tens of thousands of views. So sort of 30, 40, 50,000, 60,000.
And of course, people, the way things are now is that expands exponentially. They write an article, 10,000 people read it, 1,000 odd of those share it with other people. That got picked up by other sites and stuff like that. I think I expect that an article on Natural News may get seen by 10,000 people on Natural News, but I imagine you're a much larger figure of people who see that on Facebook or a link on Twitter or something like that. So yeah, thank you for that, Sam.
So the next criteria, harm.
People believe them. People, it's one of these things that we probably find it a little bit funny. We look at this and we go, yeah, it's just silly. We aren't convinced, but a lot of people are. A lot of people, as I said, some of the language in the articles that, specifically the article I'm looking at, some of the language is a little bit ridiculous, when they start talking about the vampires and how people, but a lot of it is also they're quite good at wording things in a slightly scientific way. They're not, what got me about this specific article is they link to the paper, which is, and as Sam said, you can go to the paper and if you just read like the blurb and, the abstract at the top or the title, you could go, goodness, they're right. There is scientific support for this. You really do have to read into it. And I'll admit, I didn't understand most of it. I understood enough to realize that Natural News were misrepresenting it, but I couldn't tell you details about it. But so I think despite the fact that their website is in the 1990s somewhere,
getting worse and worse every time.
Yeah, their articles that they put out get enough readership. People find them compelling enough to think that they're true. And in the few, I tried not to look at the website at all, to be honest. I just didn't want to give them any kind of traffic. But the things I have seen when I've been doing a little bit of research on them, it's compelling enough that if you're just reading it reads quite well. They write quite well. Easily read that in your morning news feed or whatever like that. So yeah, I think they do cause quite a lot of harm.
And they're surprisingly prolific. So they've published 13 articles today.
Mm. Okay. I will say I did some Google Trends search analysis of the search term for their website, and I found that it has increased in popularity in the last 2 years or so. It had dropped down a bit, but there are two notable spikes around March 2020 and December, January, when the vaccine rolled out.
Cool. I think that answers the relevance then. So.
Yes.
Excellent choice.
Let Sam and Erica take it from here. Was there another criteria or?
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's it. We're done.
Okay.
You covered them all.
Oh, cool.
Sam, you should tell us your nominee.
My nominee is Goop for Men, as he is known, Mr. Joe Rogan.
Oh no.
So for those not familiar with Joe Rogan, he's was a comedian, spent a long time as a comedian, and then in 2009 started a podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, which has developed into the most popular podcast in the world. In 2019, he was getting about 200 million downloads a month. For comparison, the total viewership of BBC News programs is about 10 million people a month. So his draw is about 20 times that of BBC News. Since apparently that is the yardstick that we're just using for everything. In 2021, he sort of went exclusively onto Spotify. And that thankfully has sort of curtailed his impact a little bit, but I'm going to get onto that later. But the nature of his program is basically he sits down and has a 2 to 6 hour conversation with someone, anyone. It doesn't, there's no producers, seemingly. There's no segments, there's no critique. It's just him, one other person talking for as long as they have stuff to say
until one of them taps out.
Yeah, usually the other one. Very big personality, but he is sort of generically anti-establishment without any kind of nuance or critical thought. It seems maybe that's a little harsh, but he definitely is prone to spouting conspiracy theories, and he has that just asking questions approach.
From what I've seen, he just seems to agree with whoever his guest is. He can say completely opposite things in different episodes depending on who his guest is.
He is deeply inconsistent, and he has sort of been challenged as to why do you lie, and basically or why you're inconsistent, and basically it's to keep the conversation moving. And it's like, that's not great. Like, I understand you want to keep the conversation moving, it's your livelihood. At the same time, a £100 million to move to to Spotify. Sorry, I've got the word stream up on the notes, but anyway, to move to Spotify, you're probably making enough money.
I'll agree with you for that.
Anyway, so he's a big supporter of his particular area of pseudoscience really is health. He's a big supporter of supplements and of sort of biohacking. Is take this one like weird, like, I don't know, tea leaf that's gone through a koala and been pooped out and ground up and whatever, and it'll increase your brain function, you'll be 10 times as smart as you were, kind of stuff. Which, so long as none of that's toxic, is not all that harmful. But
I think if you're eating koala butt tea leaves,
I made that up. I don't know if that's
boost
something.
Your brain power by 10%. It's going to be quite low to start.
Don't even get me started on koalas, because they're idiots. They're smooth-brained idiots with chlamydia.
So apparently koala is Sam's nominee.
I can go on about koalas if you want to. They're absolute idiots.
We hate koalas.
No, just Sam hates koalas.
That's the way to appeal to an audience.
Sorry. Briefly before I step back to Joe Rogan, koalas really smooth brains. So there's like nuance. They're really stupid. So if you give a koala, so koalas only eat eucalyptus, a plant that doesn't want to be eaten, really doesn't want to be eaten, is really toxic to them. They've constantly got diarrhea. But if you take eucalyptus leaves off the plant and put it on a plate, the koala can't recognize that it's food. It will starve to death in a room full of food because it can't recognize that the leaf not on the branch is still edible.
I heard the thing about their thumbs. They've got like a growth on the palm of their hand, which they use to climb trees. They don't use their thumbs. If that gets damaged, they will sit on the floor and starve to death rather than use their thumbs to climb up the tree.
Well, also, like so a lot of koalas starve to death because basically they have this incredibly tough leaf that they eat, and their teeth haven't adapted, so they grind their teeth down and then die of starvation. Plus, like 80 or 90% of them have chlamydia. It's just fine, and like they often drop their children, and often smother them. Like, they're just a really stupid animal. Anyway, speaking of stupid animals, Joe Rogan, since the beginning, thank you. Since the beginning of COVID, has basically questioned everything, and not in a constructive, let's try and understand the issue and think critically fashion, but in a undermining fashion. And I think that particularly came to a head with the vaccine rollout. So, having previously expressed some doubts, he sort of put his line in the sand, or his marker down in April. Basically said that healthy people don't need the vaccine. If you're healthy, if you're young, you're healthy, you're fit, there's no need to take the vaccine, which we know is wrong. It's, you're still very much at risk. It's a lower risk, but you're at a lower risk of death, but that's not no risk of death. And we also know that dying is not the only harmful result of the virus, and that getting the vaccine will protect you against more severe consequences.
I know Washington Post did some research on that, and they found that people that listen to the Joe Rogan podcast were 18% less likely to get the vaccine.
Yeah, that's good, because I was struggling to find that.
Is that cause or effect, though?
Yeah,
I don't know. He also said wearing masks is for bitches.
And I am a bitch.
Yeah, he's espoused sort of vaccine passports and mask mandates are bringing us closer to dictatorships. That was in August. And in his words, the only conspiracy that gives me pause is when people like Bill Gates say we need some sort of vaccine. Has there ever been a virus with a real vaccine that could work for the coronavirus? I don't think there has. I don't think there ever has been a vaccine for a coronavirus. To which, like, the response is, A, there have been vaccines for coronaviruses. Like, what was it? It's, which one is it? Erica?
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, but like one of the, like, I can't remember.
Just SARS?
Is it? Well, SARS, yeah, SARS obviously is a coronavirus, but it's isn't like rubella or something is a form of coronavirus. Like one of the relatively large ones is a form. Anyway, turns out yes,
there have been non-koala related territory that we don't know anything about.
Yeah, sorry, it's not koalas. I don't know about it. And so, having encouraged people not to wear masks, not to comply with vaccine mandates, on September 1st, he tested positive for the virus.
Of course.
For those that don't know, he's in good shape. Like, he goes to the gym a lot. He does eat healthily. And anyway, September 1st, he got the vaccine.
Wrong button.
He got the vaccine, and he took 4 things.
Yeah, there he is. He's in good shape and in good company.
Yes.
Oh God.
With Mr.
A close friend of his who has appeared on 4 episodes, I think.
I was like, Mr. I've lost 4 lawsuits recently, Jones. Anyway, he took 4 things in response to getting the virus. He took a vitamin drip. He took azithromycin, an antibiotic. The virus isn't a bacteria. He took ivermectin, the well-known horse dewormer that has been espoused as a potential cure, and he took monoclonal antibodies, which have been demonstrated to be a very effective sort of response to the virus, though difficult to get hold of and expensive. Basically, you take the blood of someone who has had COVID relatively recently, recovered from it, and filter out the antibodies needed to be able to identify and attack the virus.
Which, like, if we just treasure that for a moment, like, I love the idea that, like, we can help people live longer by giving them the blood of young people.
Hang on. So, a non-vaccinated person is drinking the blood of I think we've got this. This is
This vaccine with vampire things the wrong way
It's
around.
the vampires.
Yeah.
Anyways.
In any case, 2 days later, he tested negative, which is a very short time frame for someone who is apparently unvaccinated. However, a couple of possibilities there. One is that actually he'd had the vaccine he'd had the virus for a while, and seemingly had next to no symptoms, so he may just have been asymptomatic. And happened to take the test, happened to notice, it happened to be positive, and that actually these treatments did next to nothing. Or the monoclonal antibodies worked as we've seen them work on other people and really helped move things along. But strangely enough, whenever he's referencing this on the show, it's, oh yeah, I took ivermectin. No, you took a genuine treatment, and you took a pseudoscience treatment, and then you took 2 other things that were basically completely unrelated, and that's the one that you're sort of espousing. So in terms of the sort of the 4 criteria that we've got for the Rusty Razor, pseudoscience, well, he's proposed a number of dangerous concepts, and horse dewormer, which, as we've sort of seen actually has sort of been linked to people giving themselves severe poisoning.
I heard a great word for what he does. It's called bro science.
Yeah.
And it was coined by Matthew Remsky, and he gives it this definition: an unevidenced scientific or medical claims made by unqualified but charismatic male-identified influencers in support of marketing their alt health products or pushing health-related conspiracy theories that denigrate public health, which I thought was a great
I think that's
term.
excellent. Yeah. So I think he hits the pseudoscience criteria. In terms of reach, he's not as popular as he was. So Google Trends search.
I mean,
Yeah.
but he's still a lot more popular than Natural News.
So I found his biggest episodes.
Yes, so he's still getting hundreds of millions of he's still on like a couple of billion downloads a year, but the number of sort of Twitter followers that someone appearing on his show gains as a bump compared to 2019 has halved, and the search volume on Google for his name, which was at sort of averaging about 50 to 60% of the maximum in the 2 years before the Spotify deal, is down at sort of 35-40%. So that's sort of taken about a third, a cut of a third. So he's not as relevant as he was, but he is still about 5% of Spotify's podcast listens. He holds a really significant chunk of that market, and he has a level of reach that I think is astounding. So reach is significant. The things that he's espousing are definitely harmful, and he's been active recently. Is currently active. So yeah, I think he hits those sort of criteria.
Yeah, I'm convinced.
Oh, Chris, now you just have to convince us of yours.
Okay, so where's mine? Here he is. There we go. So this is Jair Bolsonaro. I had my Brazilian student training me the pronunciation for the last week. I don't think I got it yet. So he is president of Brazil, and he has just completely mishandled the pandemic from the outset. He downplayed it as mild flu.
Is it mishandled if you don't believe there's a pandemic?
I think that's a mishandling. Is it unhandled?
Yeah.
Handled?
Yeah. It's it's the difference between like apathy or like immoral and amoral. Anyway.
So I've got some quotes from here. You'll catch it someday. What are you afraid of? Face up to it. It's a nice one. There's no use trying to escape it. Escape reality. We have to quit being a country of sissies. Nice. There are allegations, and we don't have a Rebecca Jones in Brazil, sadly, but there are allegations he had the death figures falsified. He incited his supporters to oppose the lockdown measures put in place by local governments. He incited his supporters to invade the hospitals to show reports of overcrowding and respirator shortages were fake news. He, of course, caught the virus, as they all do, and at his press conference, while he was announcing he had the virus, he removed his mask to demonstrate how healthy he was.
Yes, I saw that. It's in terms of like stupid things done by public health officials, that had usurped the Iranian health minister clearly having COVID whilst denying COVID existed during a press conference. I was like, you went to a press conference with COVID. Okay, yeah, but at least he still wore a mask. Like that, yeah, this is just taking it to a whole new level.
There was another video I saw of him. He's with one of his big crowds because he's also campaigning at the moment, which is one of the reasons he's downplaying the pandemic. And someone hands him a child with a mask on, and he removes the mask from the child for a photo opportunity with the kid while holding it. So yeah, he's refused the vaccine because he says he has a high natural immunity.
So you already got the damn thing.
He warned people that the vaccine may turn them into crocodiles. It may cause women to grow beards, and it may cause men's voices to go up a few octaves.
So I think you skipped over the turn them into crocodiles bit a bit too quickly. I think I need some more explanation on that.
I don't think
there was no more explanation on that one. Do you not know how this works?
Because that would make sense.
Am I becoming a crocodile?
Are you growing a beard?
I might be trying.
So the treatment the country has been suggesting is what they call early treatment. I've got it written here in Portuguese, and I will not attempt to pronounce that, which is basically a cocktail of drugs including ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Because we want those back again. And allegedly, this cocktail was tested on residents of senior homes without their knowledge. So all this has come together, and his Senate recently accused him of crimes against humanity.
That's a bit of a bigger award than the rest of the award.
Well, there's no way it will go to trial because he has the support of
right.
Whoever needs to put that into place.
Is it also worth mentioning? There's a fairly substantial economic crisis that's been happening there for a couple of years, and he's been renowned for trying to draw fire from that crisis to other things. And so COVID has given him a good opportunity to just go, oh, no, ignore that fire over here. There's this other fire, and I'm going to help you fix it.
By pouring gas.
But he didn't do that. It's just a mild flu.
Yeah, but...
and all this is on top of his long-running anti-science campaign where he's defunded scientists, fired scientists that published data that disagree with him, denied climate change, engaged in the highest levels of deforestation of the Amazon in centuries, that has earned him the name Captain Chainsaw.
Which is an awesome name, generally speaking. What a cool superhero.
Wait, hang on.
Like, aside from the deforestation part, I just mean like...
No, I want to stay with the idea of Captain Chainsaw as a superhero. Super villain, I can see. How many situations are you correcting with a chainsaw which will label you as a hero in the situation? You know, there's a kitten up that tree. Okay, maybe.
Have you not seen the Evil Dead films?
Yeah, okay.
That's a guy with a chainsaw. Who's a hero?
I'm convinced. If Bruce Campbell can do it, then yeah.
So my only worry is the Rusty Razor's a bit of a minor thing for a guy who's committing crimes against humanity.
Oh,
wow.
Do we have any honourable mentions?
I got loads.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I have so many of them.
Can I nominate Piers Corbyn and his fart song? Because you put that in my head, Chris. And, I'm just going to share it with the chat so they can suffer as well.
So yeah, I'll let Erica make a decision before I go to the honourable mentions.
Okay. So what's interesting is that Joe Rogan's reach is very similar, like a similar sort of order of magnitude to the population of Brazil. So sort of reach arguments are pretty similar there. I have a question for Sam, which is, what portion of Joe Rogan's sort of thing would you say is directly pseudoscientific, or how much of his content is benign or even positive? Like, for example, one of his most popular episodes is an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes, that is true. I don't know, and I did go searching for, like, basically, does Joe Rogan's audience believe him? And I can find absolutely nothing on the topic.
The answer is probably some of them.
Oh yeah, certainly some of them.
I know
Well,
Alex
just
Jones. Alex Jones has been on 4 times, including
Yeah.
2 of his most popular episodes. I know Graham Hancock's been on 7 times or 9
But-
times or something ridiculous.
Popular doesn't mean
And I'm just
believe.
throwing him in because of your archaeological background. I know he'll annoy you.
But is it that it's watched because it's believed, or is it watched because it's pageantry or
Look
pantomime?
at the train wreck that you can't.
Yeah,
I think it's
Dumpster fire.
believed. I mean,
Yeah.
twice in the last month, people have come up to me randomly in conversations and go, "Oh, have you seen Joe Rogan? You should really watch Joe Rogan."
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, and I get
know
people
people
telling
who
me there's
reference him.
a guy at work who sort of, when I was first getting to know him, I thought he might be a skeptic, and now I'm convinced he's just a contrarian. No, yeah, and he's a big fan of Joe Rogan, but at the same time, I don't think he believes a single word that Joe Rogan says. I think he just finds it interesting listening.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't think much of it is positive. I think that certainly the balance overall is negative, and
Mm.
there's also a massive difference between inviting someone on and talking about things with them and expressing the belief. So giving someone a platform, if you've got a platform like Joe Rogan's, just, you can invite someone on and they can share that platform. But ultimately, people are going to be much more interested. People dial in to listen to him having a conversation about this. He is the consistent factor, and so him expressing this belief is, is harmful. And there are things that he is, that where he and my beliefs align.
Mm.
Like he's all for decriminalizing most drugs, for example, which we've sort of, it's fairly well established as a much more effective way of treating drug addiction than criminalizing it.
Mm.
But ultimately, I think the net effect is negative.
Well, I think I've got my decision. So Natural News has a good argument to make that they have a sort of broad base of pseudoscience that's quite longstanding. And they will probably continue to have a broad base of pseudoscience that's quite longstanding. So they're not just a one issue pony. It's pretty much any show in town, they will spread disinformation about it. So that's pretty strong, but I don't think their reach currently is wide enough, or their relevancy is currently wide enough. And then between Bolsonaro and Joe Rogan, they have similar impacts. And I think Bolsonaro is he's so mustache twirlingly evil in some ways. Or sort of his actions are sort of so extreme that I think that in terms of spreading, so I think he probably has a directly more negative impact than Joe Rogan does. But I think when it comes to sowing the seeds of pseudoscience, I think that Joe Rogan's voice is more insidious because it creeps into the hearts of people who want to be entertained, who want a male role model. And it can much more easily, I think, turn people into pseudoscientists because it's less extreme. So I'm going to go with Joe Rogan.
I think it's a fair decision. I'll accept it.
Award winner. So who are your special mentions, honorable mentions?
Dishonorable mentions.
Dishonorable mentions.
We've got one from the chat.
The
Prime Minister of New Zealand, whose name I won't attempt to pronounce because I know I always say it wrong.
Jacinda Ardern.
I have to disagree with that one.
Yes.
She's done an excellent job. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought she's done really well on COVID. I don't know what the criteria would be for nominating her for a Rusty Razor.
Anyway,
sorry.
Yeah, so where's my list? So the 3 countries that had the worst COVID response, we've mentioned that one of them we don't need to mention because he is sadly no longer with us, but I think Narendra Modi also deserves a mention because, again, a long career of science denial and pushing pseudoscience. He declared the pandemic over in February so he could open up his religious movements and political gatherings. He ignored warnings from his scientists. He's promoted Ayurveda, yoga, cowpathy, and all those wonderful things.
Yeah.
Who else have I got?
I was expecting you to give the Dirty Dozen.
They're on here, yeah. They are. The disinformation dozen are on there, yeah. Let me see. They were found. The CECDH found them responsible for 65% of all online anti-vax disinformation.
Wow.
So.
Well, I saw something
That's
like
crazy.
when Trump got banned from Twitter, the amount of disinformation dropped by like 30%.
Goodness.
It was just.
I can believe that.
It might be like just within the US, but in any case, it's like it shows that sort of exponential power of someone shares something, and then the people they shared it with share it with someone else, and just within a couple of steps, you've got this enormous spread.
Yeah, so those are sort of the American international ones. We have our own. Why is this not working? We have our own group. These wonderful people, and many more who.
Every now and then, like I will click on the do not comply hashtag on Twitter, just to get my popcorn out and watch what's going on. And I would say that quite often what I see is people being like, oh my God, can you believe these idiots using this hashtag? But it's just yeah, it's depressing. The parts of the internet that are not in the echo chamber that I live in are disturbing.
Yep.
And any other dishonorable mentions for anyone else?
Piers Morgan, just because he's Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's done, but I'm sure it's been rubbish. I don't know. I think he got kicked off a TV show or something.
Yeah, that's true.
He's always on my list of people who have annoyed me in the last year. Just his existence.
I think it's something with the name Piers. I don't know.
Mm.
Cool. Okay, so nominations are open till December the 2nd, so make sure you get your nominations in officially. We'll put a link down below. And the awards will be announced on December the 9th on Skeptics in the Pub online.
Cool. So that concludes what we wanted to do today. What are we going to be doing in 2 weeks?
Chris,
what are we going to be doing in 2 weeks?
We have a very special guest who I have not read up enough on to say anymore.
It's going to be so special. It's going to be really, really special.
yes.
That's special, yeah.
It's so special that we can't tell you more about it right now. And the topic will be...
Yes.
It's also very special.
Very special topic.
Very special topic. Okay, right.
Yeah, I think it's fair just to say that something is brewing, and we hope it'll be interesting. We'll give out more information when we can.
Yes, we'll give you more information when it's all ready to go.
He may be so special that he isn't here and doesn't turn up. So yeah. But,
it's not Santa Claus.
oh. Well, now I'm sad.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's leave it there and say goodnight to everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
Hi, everyone.